Okay, this time, as you can see,
You ready?
I'm not beating on anything or
You ready?
right.
Right.
I decided to come straight up and straight at you. As you know, Zola,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I like to do is books. I like to write books in series. Maybe start off looking at one facet of something, and then write another book to look at another facet of it. I've done it a number of times, and I kind of like that way of dealing with things. One of the things that strikes me is the book behind me, the bullfight book.
Mm-hmm.
I started off writing about a young man in Chicago who's sort of a Obama-esque kind of character,
Mm-hmm.
who fell in love with bullfighting after having gone to see the life of Manolete
Mm-hmm.
at the World Playhouse down on Roosevelt Road, down on Roosevelt, 12th and Roosevelt,
Okay.
in the Roosevelt University auditorium.
Okay.
An authentic bullfighter himself, a man named Diego Obolja,
Mm-hmm.
an Irishman from Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
read the book, and I'm totally, terribly, always flattered to say that he was dealing with some kind of eye condition at the time, and he read the book while his eyes were, having problems, and
Mm-hmm.
wrote me a wonderful 3-page letter about and recommended some things to do. I was almost content to let the book go after I wrote it. The guy wanted to be a bullfight, goes to Mexico and winds up being exploited by an unscrupulous manager named Flores and blah, blah, blah. That's the end of that. After receiving his note, I decided to enlarge it, so I did. In this instance, I started off dealing with a snake,
Mm-hmm.
and it tells the story of an African American named Kojo Brown,
Mm-hmm.
who goes to Ghana when he's 17, 18 years old, goes to stay in a village called Chee-to for a week or so,
Mm-hmm.
and meets what they call a wizard in the outskirts of Chee-to. He asks the man no, he doesn't ask him to do anything. The man asks him,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's a USC film graduate. He wants to make that great breakout film, but he needs money. And he's telling Asiafo, the wizard, what I need is to make money, to have money to finance this film and so forth. The wizard tells him that it's possible.
Yes.
Some guy living in a palm, in a banana leaf hut in the middle of the jungle who's making fire with sticks and moss and says, yeah, you can get your money. I think you can get your money.
Yeah.
You have to do this and that. It's a very old story in many ways. I think it's in European folk tales, it's always a Faustian tale, quid pro quo. You do this for me, I do that for you, and so it winds up being the case here.
Mm-hmm.
In the first novel I read, The Snake, 2020, it started off, and
The Snake 2020.
the snake Snake 2020 comes to an end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I decided that what I would do is carry on because Asiafo is killed, and we find out that he has a son behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would try to pull one of these ancestral connection things off, so that Asiafo's son, the wizard's son, lives in Ghana. Kojo's son
Mm-hmm.
is going to go to Ghana,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to have them meet and see what happens when they meet. And but first, I had to give some backstory for those readers or people who may not have heard the first part of the story. So I'm starting off with a review of just a
Yeah, so you want to see I would like to see the cover of the book that you're reading
You
now.
want to see the cover? You want to see the cover?
Yes, please.
You want a piece of the cover? You want?
Yes, please. I want to see the cover. Okay.
This is the snake doctor.
That's the snake doctor.
And also, this is the snake doctor's son.
Uh-huh.
One and the same.
Asiapo and the son. They
That's
look
right.
so much like. Sometimes fathers and sons resemble each other so much.
They look like the same picture, but don't let that fool you.
Gotcha. All right. So you're going to be reading which chapters?
I'm going to read chapter 3 and chapter 4. They're both brief chapters.
All right. Looking forward to it.
We started off with 1 and 2 when Kofi is born.
Mm-hmm.
And they find out early on that for some reason he is very interested in snakes. But we'll get to why that is the case as we go on. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
a brief review of who Kojo was, who Kojo is.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't raised in a conventionally religious household. My mom and dad made it quite clear early on that they could offer me some spiritual advice, and they were totally comfortable with the idea of me becoming a Christian, Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, or whatever. Dad laid it out for me more than a few times. I rejected Christianity and Islam outright the minute I found out that both of them sanctioned slavery. I don't care what people say that Christ said, or that people say that this is what Muhammad said. All I can go on is the hard evidence of what these so-called Christians and Muslims have done, what they are doing. It would be damn near impossible for me to go sit up in a church somewhere and sing Amazing Grace and all the rest of that stuff knowing what I know. Ditto for bowing down to Mecca 5 times a day, knowing what I know about the Arabian slave trade. I guess that causes everybody's head light up on fire. I'm right at your father's side on this one, Kojo. I have a lot of issues with all of the major religions when it comes to the position and the role of women, black, white, whatever. It seems to me that all of the major religions have relegated women to some little room over there. Islam is usually pointed out as the worst offender, but I don't think they're any worse than the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Jews, or the Christians. So what do you guys believe in? What's your religion? I was about 12 at the time. Go ahead, Njinga. Go ahead, you tell him what, you're pretty good at this. Look at who's talking.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were always enjoying kidding each other. Well, okay, I'm the designated hitter, huh? Let me explain it to you this way, Kojo. We are proud African Americans, and we feel that the spiritual systems our ancestors had when they were brought over here are good enough for us. So that's what your altar's all about? Dad clapped me on the back, a big smile on his face. Gave the man a Cupid doll for his powers of observation. Mom had a serious expression on her face as she continued with her explanation. We don't believe any religion or spiritual system on earth is any better than any other. They're all flawed because they are practiced by human beings, but we feel closer and more in tune with the vibes that come down to us from our ancestors. All you have to do is just think about it for a moment. Would you rather believe in something your ancestors believe in, or would you rather believe in something that your conquerors, the people who enslaved your ancestors, forced them to believe in? It's not a difficult choice. Now, Dad was the one with the serious expression. That's the way we thought about it. We felt it would be truer to the spirit of who we are, where we came from, to pay homage to the spirits of our ancestors, rather than pay lip service to some stuff that has been force-fed to our ancestors. I've had a hell of a time trying to make my mother and father, your grandmother, Minerva, and granddad, Harvey, understand where we're coming from. But it really doesn't matter. I love them and they love me. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It wasn't too long after that conversation that I created my own family altar shrine. Hard to explain how I felt, but it was definitely a good feeling. My mom and dad were pleased as punch. You got to understand, Kojo, we didn't feel that it was the right thing to do to superimpose our ideas, our way of worship on you. But I have to say, as a mother, it gives me a warm feeling to know that you decided to follow in our footsteps. The thing to do now is study the African spiritual systems. Become intelligent about what you believe in. As you probably know, as a result of the African diaspora, there are African spiritual systems all over the planet. You may find a little bit of this one inside of that one, or vice versa. But one of the central points they all hold to is this: you must make the proper sacrifice for what you want. In Yoruba, they call it an ebal. An ebal. By the time I made my second trip to Ghana at the age of 25, I had made eballs all over the place. I have to believe that my eyeballs were well received because I received just about everything I had prayed for. However, as a writer-producer with my own production company, Cosmic Muffin Productions, I still lacked the millions that I needed to make that breakout film. This is where Asiafo comes onto the set. Oh boy, that qualm is good.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the inconvenience of village life in Chee-to, I didn't feel depressed or anything. And the morning that I met Asiafo in the forest definitely lifted my spirits, my morale, and my expectations. I had taken a walk in the forest, something that Grace's Auntie Eugenia, my hostess, couldn't clearly understand. Kojo, you are going to walk in the forest? Oh, why? For exercise, Auntie, for exercise. I can still see the puzzled look on her face. With all of the work to be done, washing, chopping wood, cooking, cleaning, planting, sewing, hut building, carrying 5-gallon cans on your head, etc. Who needs to exercise? It took about 200 yards away from the village for me to find myself in the equatorial rainforest. I had grown up on wild kingdom, nature, animals of the world, so I wasn't freaked out about anything. I wasn't afraid of giant snakes dropping down on my shoulders from the overhanging tree limbs, or that I was being stalked by man-eating leopards. The forest is like a great green tree-shrouded cathedral. There were monkey sounds here and there, bird calls, but mostly an immense silence. I inspected a large fallen log, tapped on it to make certain that the snake or snakes would know that I was about to straddle the log. I must have sat there for 10 minutes or so before I smelt this incredible aroma. It was not a smell, a will-o'-the-wisp thing. This was an aroma, a kind of rich wildflower perfume. I've never smelled anything like it since then. Maybe the closest aroma I can think of is when you go to some place where skunks have been. The aroma seemed to drift around my head like the thin blue smoke from a good Cuban cigar. I slowly turned to my left, and as I turned, the man in my peripheral vision made a lightning move and wound up sitting straddle-leg on a log or so, or a yard or so in front of me. I didn't know who he was because I hadn't been told anything about anybody named Asiafo at that point in time. We must have sat there studying each other for about 5 minutes. The first thing I noticed about him after acclimating myself to this exotic aroma that seemed to seep out of his pores was how incredibly healthy he looked. He was a dark chocolate-colored man, and his skin actually glowed with health. He wore a large tree leaf on his uncombed hair, a cowrie shell necklace, and a grass skirt. No weapon, just a bright gleam in his black eyes. He was an African man, no doubt about that. But he seemed to be more a creature of the forest than anything else. I made a snap decision to allow him to speak first, which I immediately forgot. What if he can speak English? What if he can't speak at all? I spoke in a low tone, as soft as I could, but my voice still sounded too loud in that place. Can you speak English? He cocked his head to one side as though he was trying to determine where my voice came from and nodded. Yes, yes. We were still studying each other, two laboratory specimens mounted on a fallen log. He was relaxed, cat-like. I recalled the fantastic movement he had made to sit in front of me. He was at ease, relaxed now. But I knew he could be cobra quick if he wanted to be. How old? I could only guess. He had the slim physique of an 800-meter man, but his eyes were bright and old. Who are you? I felt compelled to ask him. I'm called Asiafo. Asiafo. It didn't mean anything specific to me, it was just a name. Really interesting person, really interesting situation. There seemed to be no need for us to start babbling at each other the way a lot of people do when they first meet. And you? He asked me. My name is Kojo Brown. I'm from America. He nodded, taking that piece of information in, and then we smiled at each other and started laughing. I don't know why. Maybe the scene of the two of us straddling on this log struck a mutual funny bone. I said, Afo, where do you live? I haven't seen you in Chee-to. I do not live in Chee-to. I live here. He made a sweeping gesture with both arms. I had to grip the log with my legs to keep from falling off. You live here? In the forest? He nodded, yes, yes. He didn't say a lot, but when he spoke, it sounded that each word had a different accent. I couldn't place the accents. It wasn't the usual Ghanaian up-down tonal pattern. I'd never heard anyone speak like Asiafo. Zoom, close up, pan the forest, another angle. I started shooting my film right then and there. Asiafo in the forest. He looked at me with an amused expression on his face. There was something about his expression that made me feel that he knew what was on my mind. Asiafo, do you know what I'm thinking right now? He laughed, a short, high-pitched laugh, a hyena laugh that jarred me a bit. You're making pictures of me, of this. Once again, it's his sweeping gestures. So how do you know what I'm thinking? Because your eyes tell me. My eyes reveal what's on my mind. You made it familiar, you nod, yes. This is absolutely fascinating to me. What kind of training? How could he speak with such certainty about what was on my mind? Well, I know they say that the eyes are windows to the soul or something like that, but I look in your eyes and I have no idea what you're thinking. He shrugged eloquently, as though to say, well, I can do it and you can't. So what? And that's where we left it for a few beats. I enjoyed the pace of our conversation. There was no frenzied, you say, I say, you say, I say, and that sort of thing. He didn't say a lot, but whatever he said was right on the button. Asiafo, you can call me Kojo if you like. He nodded, yes, yes, pleasantly. We didn't shake hands, we simply exchanged neat little bows. He made his hyena laugh again. He obviously had a different sense of humor. Asiafo, a little while ago you said, you're making pictures of me, of this. And it's true, in my mind's eye I was creating a film about you, about this. I did his sweeping arms gesture. He edged forward on the log, giving me his full attention, inviting me to speak. I know there's never been a film made about an African man living in the forest alone. You are out here by yourself, aren't you? He nodded, yes, yes. I would become familiar with his gestures. We've had pictures of white guys with loincloths on, swinging through the trees, doing all sorts of idiotic stuff. But we've never seen a black man, an African, living the natural life. He smiled shyly. So, you want to do the Asiafo story, huh? Yes, yes. I want to do the Asiafo story, my grandfather's story. A realistic story of the Middle Patches, the story of how the human being came into existence in East Africa the stories of the connection that the Africans and the indigenous people in North and South America made, how it happened. I want to peel back the layers of bullshit and show the real deal. He had touched a nerve with his question. I was off and running. Which one of your stories would you like to picture first? I had to give that some serious thought for a long minute. He waited patiently, staring me straight into my face. Which picture would I like to picture first? Well, I've written a script called My Grandfather's Eyes. It's the story of a man who lived a full, rich, colorful life, went through a lot of changes, made a positive impact on a lot of folks, and died at the age of 104. We didn't mourn my grandfather's death. We celebrated his life. He was a wonderful man, a great spirit. That's the picture I would like to make first. So why don't you do it? It was my turn to laugh. Evidently, he didn't know what there was to know about the movie business. Why don't I do it? Well, the major problem is, as usual, money. It costs a lot of money to make a picture if you're going to do it right. How much money? Funny the way he said it may sound like leaves from a tree or scraps of paper. So. Millions. Millions? How many millions? This was becoming interesting. What next? Above the line and below the line costs, distribution, advertising, point shares. I think I could do it on a shoestring, let's say 5 or 6 million minimum. He tilted his head back for a few moments as though he was gazing at the treetops around us, or maybe doing some sort of calculations. Come back tomorrow, Kojo, at the same time. I think I may be able to help you. And like a snake's tongue flicking out, he was gone. I sat on the log a few minutes longer, attempted to laugh out loud, but chilled out the urge, knowing Asafo was watching me from somewhere. Tomorrow, same time, same place? I spoke aloud to reaffirm our appointment. Asiafo's yes seemed to come from opposite places. Maybe he was a ventriloquist. I strolled slowly through the forest. A half-naked man in the equatorial rainforest was going to help me secure financing for a movie. Or at least he said he might be able to do it. It didn't really matter either way. The idea of it was mind-blowing. That's chapter 3. On to chapter 4. Aunt Eugenia was wringing her hands and showing all the distress that mothers' aunts show about delinquent kids. Oh, Kojo, you have been gone a long time. I was worrying that you would be lost. No, Auntie, I wasn't lost. Come, I have prepared your chop. It ain't bushmeat, is it? She smiled at my joke. After 4 days of her generous hospitality and her delicious Ghanaian food, we could smile at the memory of the first meal she had served me. Bushmeat. It only took a few bites from this small hind leg to realize that I was gnawing on a large rat. Bushmeat. It wasn't bad, just a bit unsettling. I dismissed my squeamish cultural bias and ate the damn thing as though I had been eating bushmeat all my life. But I couldn't fool her. No more bushmeat for you, Kojo. We have banku and okra stew. I suddenly tasted it, man.
Yeah.
I did the culturally correct thing and rinsed my right hand to dig into a bowl of scrumptious okra stew. It could have been gumbo filet without the shrimps. Aunt Eugenia sat across from me on the low wooden table in front of her neat little 3-room hut. She watched me eat, making little sounds to let me know that there was more banku and okra stew if I wanted more. She did eat with me. That was a cultural thing to do. Auntie, would you like to take some chop with me? It's delicious. She smiled and shook her head. No, no. I was reminded of Asiafo nodding up and down. Yes, yes. She brought me a small wooden bowl with water and a sliver of soap to wash my hands, a piece of cloth to dry my hands after I had eaten 2 bowls of banku and okra stew. She was pleased with my appetite. I leaned my back against the hut wall, belly full, watching village life go on around me. Goats eating cardboard, dried banana leaves, bits of ends of whatever they could find. Children playing as usual, and women, young and old, washing, sewing, and hauling water and other things on their heads. The older men, the elders, sat under a large tree at the edge of the village, sipping palm wine and discussing village business. All surrounded by rainy season mud. So, Kojo, my son, how did you find it in the forest? I love that Kojo, my son thing. It had a beautiful ring to it, a beautiful family ring. Auntie, I met an unusual man in the forest. She looked like she was going to keel over from shock. What does this man call himself? Asiafo. Oh, 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 oh. She stood up and did a little circular dance, holding her right hand over her mouth. I just stared at her. I didn't know what to think. After a couple more circles, she beckoned me to follow her into the hut. We had never sat in the hut together since the first day she had gone to one of her relatives to spend the night and left me in the hut alone. She gestured for me to sit on one of the stools in the hut as she dug down into a large straw bag hanging on the far wall. She brought out 2 glasses and a fifth of clear liquor. She sat on the stool across from me, poured both of us big slugs of liquor. I said, Auntie, what is this? Obeah, she announced, and started a series of serious libations. Each time she dribbled a bit of the liquor on the ground, she said what must have been prayers. It was in Obeah. It had a gorgeous feel to it, but I couldn't understand a word. Finally, she tilted the glass up and swallowed the rest of the Obeah. I tried to do the same, which seemed to be the proper thing to do, but I was only able to swallow a large sip. They're called Obeah, the poor man's gin, but it was stronger than gin. Auntie, you seem to be disturbed about something. She poured more Obeah into her glass, made 3 more libations and prayers before she spoke to me. Kojo, my son, you have met this wicked one, Asiafo, in the forest. I have offered prayers for you. Asiafo? Wicked? He didn't seem wicked to me. Matter of fact, he seemed like a pretty nice dude. I mean, after all, he was talking about helping me get the buck to make my grandfather's eyes. I had already come up with a working title for my script. Auntie, I don't understand. Why do you say Asiafo is wicked? He is a witch. I took a big sip of Obeah. I had to be cool about this. The word witch sounded so medieval. I had to remember that I was in a small village in Ghana, in the middle of nowhere, and there was a lot for me to learn about the scene. Please, Auntie, tell me, what makes him a witch? She took a big slug of her drink and stared down at the earth floor looking embarrassed. You asked, I would tell you. When I was a small girl in this village, this wicked man was banished from the village and cursed for knowing his mother. I stared at her. Village people were so into biblical things, for knowing his mother, and thus did Onan know his brother's wife. Are you sure he knew his mother? They were caught by 2 of the elders. I felt a warm thud hit the bottom of my stomach. Maybe it was the Obeah, or maybe it was the information she was giving me. So he was cursed and banished to the forest. How long ago? It was at least 40 years now. And what happened to his mother? She was a witch, and she was burned in her hut. That sounded like excessive punishment on both counts, but I didn't live in Chee-to, and I couldn't pass judgment on them. How was Asiafo when he was banished? The old lady took a moment to count back. She reminded me of my grandfather, who could never be rushed to say anything. He was 20 years. 20 years. The guy that I saw today didn't look a day older than 40. Auntie, the man I met in the forest today didn't look like a 60-year-old man. He has learned great powers in the forest from the forest spirits. Maybe he has learned how not to become old. We know that he has many powers. Can you give me an example? You say, can you tell me about something he's done that shows some of his powers? She pursed her lips and furrowed her brow, thinking I could sense her reluctance to talk about Asiafo, the wicked man, but I could see that the appetite had loosened her up a bit. This man who lived in our village had a wife who died. The man did not want her dead, so he went into the forest and found the wicked one and paid him to bring his wife back from the dead. The sound of the village seemed to go away for a moment. He brought somebody back from the grave. How much did he charge to do what he did? The man did not pay money. I couldn't quite figure out what that meant and decided not to press the issue. Can you think of anything else? It is said that he has learned how to disappear, to fly like a bird, to become a cheek or a snake. And you think these things make him wicked? There's much more. They say he can read the mind and go into tomorrow. Whoa! And he's wicked because he hates everyone. Well, I think that's pretty easy to understand. His mother was burned alive and he was cursed and banished to the forest. I think anybody would be pissed. You say, I can easily understand why he would be annoyed. Many in the village wanted to kill him, his mother and all of their family members. Does he still have family here? They went away many years ago. So let me get this straight. A man was cursed and banished to the forest 40 years ago. He gets help from the forest spirits to develop great powers, and he is wicked because he hates everybody. She stood swaying a bit and poured another dollar of appetite into her glass, slugged it down. 6 people of his village have gone to him to ask something of him, and when they didn't make the proper payments on time, they were never seen again. That's wicked. It's wicked, I warn you. I watched the old lady shuffle out, slightly tipsy. I remained in place trying to put it all together. I could see a hell of a film in this. If I could determine which point of view would be the most effective. Aunt Eugenia's, Asiafo's, mine, someone else. And if all of the scenes could be sewn so that the stitching wouldn't show, but somehow the puppet would remain, how could I make anyone believe that this was the 21st century? I forced myself to eat the onion, tomato, fish stew, sprinkled with the grits like corn they call gari. I was anxious to keep my appointment with the Asiafo, the wicked man. Immediately after chopping, I made an oblique move to get away. The old lady was sharp. She peeked my getaway from around the corner of her hut. Kojo, my son, you're going for a walk in the forest? I have warned you. Everything is cool, auntie. Everything is cool. I checked my watch. 9:30. And the sky looked grayish like a little rain was on the way. No matter. I had an appointment to keep. I thought I had taken the wrong path until I came across the log. Good, I'm in the right place. I straddled the log, wishing that I had brought a bottle of water with me. The humidity was stifling. The hair on the back of my neck stood up when this hand reached over my left shoulder with the top of a coconut lopped off. I tried to control my shakes as I took the coconut and drank the sweet liquor from it. I couldn't figure out why Asiafo was sitting behind me. Thank you, I'm really thirsty. You're welcome.
Yeah, right.
Dragging drinks from the river.
Yes.
I turned to pass the coconut shell back to him, discovered that he was sitting in front of me. You really get around, don't you? He nodded, yes, took the coconut, smashed it on the log, and gave me a large hunk of the meat to eat. Delicious, sweet, We chewed on the fresh coconut meat for a few beats before we spoke. So now, you know all about me. Once again, that fright wig feeling shot up the back of my neck. He hadn't asked the question. He'd made a blunt statement. Now what? I know what one person has told me. I don't know your story. She told you the correct story. His expression didn't change. There was no body language to indicate that he felt ashamed, remorseful, or evil. The sudden shrill cries of a flock of birds filled up this word space between us. You've been living here in the forest since you were banished? Yes. I stared at him. No wrinkles, no bags under his eyes, not an ounce of fat, all of his teeth, serene looking. I said, Awful, may I ask you a few questions? Do you want to get wet? No, I don't want to get wet. It's going to rain in a few minutes. He slipped from the log and gestured for me to follow him. 6 people, Auntie said, had gone to see him for some reason. And when they didn't make the proper payment, they were never seen again.
Okay.
Well, I hadn't asked for anything, and I didn't owe him anything, so I thought I was cool. After about 5 minutes of fast walking, we came to a small clearing. There was a large hut made of broad banana leaves in the center of the clearing. It was a scene right out of the documentary about the tourist forest people, the so-called pygmies, except that his banana leaf hut was larger. 10 seconds after we ducked inside, the rain sloshed down. Whoa! We made it just in time. How did you know?
Please.
He cut my idiot question to pieces with a sharp glance.
Mm-hmm.
How could I live in the forest this long and not know when it's going to rain?
Mm-hmm.
Asiapo started a small fire in a hole in the center of the hut with flint, sparks, and dry moss. I felt like someone who'd been taken back to the beginning. He lit 2 wicks floating in 2 oil-filled half coconut shells. He fed the fire with a few twigs and then larger sticks of wood. The interior suddenly had a warm, hospitable atmosphere. He gestured for me to sit on a beautifully carved stool. If he was a wicked man, then he certainly had an eye for beautiful things. I stared at the vine contraption, animal traps hanging on the foundation poles of his hut, the woven baskets, the leaf shade hats, the hand-fashioned tools. We sat on our stools looking at the fire, listening to the drum thunder beats on the roof of the hut. He wanted to ask me questions. I had almost forgotten what I wanted to ask, a bit overwhelmed by the atmosphere. He was focused. What did I want to ask him? What happens when you get sick? He smiled at me in a patronizing way. I do not believe in sickness. I don't either, but let's say a mosquito bites you, you get malaria. I have medicine. You have a medicine for malaria? He gave a familiar yes nod. There was such a definite way he nodded, yes. You have medicine for AIDS, cancer, common cold. I don't have these things here. But you do have medicine to treat them. Yes. I gazed into the fire for a long, thoughtful moment. Where in the hell am I? Where is all this? Can I make a film out of it? You want to make a picture of this? He asked in a soft, sweet voice. I stared into the eyes of a man who could read minds who was obviously clairvoyant. I had no doubts about it. Yes, if not this, then other films that would change minds and attitudes, films that would be wonderful, reasonable, sensitive, intelligent. You spoke of these pictures before. The rain seemed to be pounding on the leaves like the down-stroking foo-foo sticks. We were silent for a few minutes. It is possible for you to have the millions you need to do your picture, he said quietly. Once again, I stifled the urge to laugh. A half-naked man making fire with sticks, living in a banana leaf hut in the middle of the equatorial rainforest, tells me that it's possible for me to have the millions needed to do my film, fulfill my dreams. how do I get these millions? I asked politely. I didn't want to sound skeptical. Come back to the log tomorrow. I will have the answer for you. The rain has stopped. Come, I will guide you back to the log. I stood up feeling lightheaded. My problems were over, solved. I had nothing to worry about. The forest dripped raindrops from its leaves. The ground was gooey, and there was a heavy, dank funk on the air. I followed Asiafu back to the log, tried to stop where he stepped, bend under the branches the way he did to blend into the forest. He literally disappeared when we got back to the log. Oh, well, I'll see him tomorrow. Yes! His voice echoed from a place above my head. Tomorrow, same time, same place. And then that crazed hyena laughed. God, who taught that man how to laugh like that?
Life.
I held my wristwatch up and checked the time. 10:45. No, that couldn't be right. I listened to my watch, an expensive timepiece. It was clicking like a metronome. It's got to be late at 10:45. Something strange going on here. I can't believe all of what just happened only took 45 minutes. The meeting, going to his hut, the rain, all of that in 45 minutes. He spent the rest of the day holding his watch to his ear from time to time. I spent the day carefully reviewing every moment I had spent with Asiafu. I wanted to make absolutely certain that I was not indebted to him for anything. He had offered to help me. I had not made any requests or demands. I wanted to be certain I wouldn't be number 7 on the list of people who had disappeared. And that's chapter 3 and 4. And that's where I'm going to stop right now.
My goodness.
Because, as you see, Asiafu is on the scene.
Asiafu
The wizard.
on the scene. Got it. Well, with that, sir, okay, the Snake Doctor
The Snake Doctor, yeah.
can be purchased on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, local bookstore. Go in and say, I want the Snake Doctor by Odie Hawkins. It's the second book in the Snake series, we might say.
That's right.
And your website is www.odiehawkins.com. You are also on the author's page at Amazon. And those who are viewing this video, if you like it, please like it and subscribe. With that, we will see you.
I would like to announce that the person's voice that you hear on the other side of the camera is none other than the cosmic muffin herself, the inimitable Zola Salena-Hawkins.
Why, thank you, Odie Hawkins. Glad to be working.
You ought to put some clothes on when you do this.
Odie Hawkins, I am dressed. You are so naughty. You are so naughty.
Asiafu got into me. Don't start buttoning up yourself. Look at you, you becoming self-conscious.
I am coming self-conscious just to
Oh, you want to prove you got some clothes on?
to come over and tell you I love you. And I do have clothes on.
That was a quick,
All right. You are a storyteller.
I've seen people strip fast, but I've never seen anybody dressed that fast.
Don't.
Okay.
She tells stories.
I apologize.
All right then.
Yes.
With that, my love.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.